Hi, everyone. Welcome to Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. I'm Langdon DeMint,
And I'm Julian Taylor.
and welcome to our podcast.
That's the thing I really believe in, Langdon, is this whole approach of let's go and spot hazards. If we can get people spotting hazards, we stand a chance of stopping things from happening.
I think we've had some good discussion here around the incident management life cycle, and hopefully, what you're seeing as we're trying to take this journey is our first step is actually how do we identify hazards? And to me, one of the most important things is helping people understand what is a hazard.
People who work in an organization quite likely aren't motivated by business priorities. So a manager coming out saying this is a business priority is not a real motivator for people to say, right, I'm going to do that thing. Yeah. So what we have to do is, I think one of the starting points is tapping into what's the personal value. Yeah. So what is the value to you as an individual to do this? And that might motivate people. And I think I've talked about this loads of times before, but I talk about it because it makes sense. And it's doing things like doing exercises with them to understand what's the implications of getting this wrong. So actually, if you have an incident, what effect is it going to have on you as a person? Not on the business, but what effect is it going to have on you as a person? So I love talking to people about what do you do when you're not at work. So it might be crazy things like I'm going to throw myself down a river with loads of rocks in it, and but people do lots of different things when they're outside of work. And it's actually getting them to realize that actually you could be jeopardizing that, all of those things that you like to do, through the potential of having an industrial accident. Yeah. So even if you've got kids, the fact that you're not going to be able to give your kids a hug, or you're not going to be able to go and play sport or do hobbies with them. But if we can start to get people to recognize there's a value, this is about you. It's not about the business. It's about you and about protecting your future. That I think that's a really important starting point. We create that culture of whenever you're in the workplace, doesn't matter where you are, if you see something that's got the potential to cause damage or to hurt somebody, you talk about it. I was just reflecting on a sort of a conversation I was having or heard with an organisation the other day, and the guy said, he was asked a question about how are things reported, and he said, well, they're brought in by hand. So that kind of implies to me that somebody's filling out a piece of paper, then having to go and find a manager and hand the piece of paper to a manager.
Well, they might
And
have a
they've just,
Dropbox.
well, they might have a Dropbox, okay, yeah. But what are the dangers in having that kind of approach? The danger is I've got to go and find a piece of paper. I've got to fill the piece of paper out. If I don't understand it exactly, there might be issues there. So there's a massive likelihood that actually people aren't going to report things. So you're going to get an under reporting and under observation of these things, so we don't know about them. So I think one of the other things you've got to really consider if you're trying to put this hazard spotting approach into place is making it really simple and easy. And I'll bang that KISS drum again of just keeping it stupidly simple. If we make things stupidly simple, people will do it. Yeah. So if we make it immediate, we make it simple, people can do it. Boom, it's done. It's out of the way. Yeah. Soon as you start introducing any kind of complexity in terms of I've got to go and find a form, I've got to fill a format, I've got to take it to somebody, you're inherently going to reduce the number of things that get reported.
Yeah. You just said something made me, and I don't know if I've actually ever told you this, but there was one time I was working with an organization and they were, and it's been years, but they were really looking at incident management and trying to be proactive. And it was very good. It was exciting through some of the conversations we were having. So we did a walkthrough, not a, I'd say almost it wasn't a full mock OSHA inspection or anything like that, but just a walkthrough, trying to, if we saw something, give some extra thoughts. And we started talking about the hazard reporting standpoint, hazard recognition. How do you get people reporting hazards? Do you have them reporting hazards near misses? I'm like, yeah, we do. And we asked how, and it was that same thing as paper. Okay, well, what do they do with those? Well, we have a box we put them in. Oh, that's great. Can we take a look at it? Yeah. So we went, showed us the box, and it was locked. Which that's fine. That's, I guess, it's one of those things. Maybe I might not, but I get it because I don't want anybody to mess with it. From the standpoint of being able to open and maybe take something out, but ultimately they couldn't find the key. So we had, I don't recall when it had been updated last or anything like that. So you have a system in place, a process to try to make it, I guess, as easy as it is to report hazards, to report what you see. But then they didn't know where the key was to get in. And I found out that that had been actually happening for a little, that wasn't the first day. So that's it. I mean, how many organizations try to streamline incident management, try to maybe even streamline some risk assessments, and that's great. But are they making it easy for people to report hazards? When employees are in there, and if I can't report, I'm definitely not going to correct.
It's kind of illogical, isn't it? So we've got to kind of change that mindset. I'm just imagining the curly brown bits of paper that you're going to pull out of that box that have been in there for a long time. Yeah.
Scrolls.
Yeah. So I think, I think there's so much we need to think about here. And I think one of the other biggies, I talk about the black hole of doom. And the black hole of doom is really simple, which is, and it relates to so much in health and safety, is people report things and then they don't hear anything about it. And the most criminal bit, Langdon, is actually in a lot of cases, people report something and something does happen about it. But actually what we don't do is we don't communicate. We don't tell people. And actually, how do you make people feel valued and empowered? One of the really easy ways to do it is to say, great work telling us about this thing. This is the result of what you told us. Yeah. And you can show a really positive outcome to
Yes.
it. So that's got to be a part of your process. Part of your process has got to be that feedback loop. So either a lessons learned or an outcome of what's been reported, and we can celebrate them, can't we? And you think about that as a word, celebrating health and safety, celebrating something is far more positive than going in and doing things like incident investigations. We're doing positive things.
Well, and I think what you just said, that's, we're focusing on, the hazard recognition, hazard awareness, but that element of then reporting them, and we get into that further in a week or so, but there are so many obstacles to reporting that I've seen with organizations. I know you have, and that is one way to overcome it, what you just said. If you show that we're listening, you show, and I don't even mean senior leadership. It could be your super, it could be your frontline manager, it could be me as the safety manager walking around. If I at least show that, hey, John over here in line B spotted a couple of things and noticed some of the mats around were starting to curl up on the edges. So we realized that that wasn't good. So we put new mat. I mean, that's a little thing that seems pretty maybe irrelevant, but for the guy that's standing on it for 8-10 hours a day, that's a big thing. And that shows that, you know what, they care.
The other thing to talk about is we also can reflect back on some of the previous things that we've talked about. One in particular is leadership. So again, leadership has always had this role to play within health and safety. And again, within hazard spotting, it's the same thing, is just talk about it. We talk about visible felt leadership, which is leadership being seen, talking about safety and talking about the elements of safety that are important. So actually leadership, when they're on site, when they're on the shop floor, when they're visiting maybe a construction site, is actually talking about the hazards that have been spotted. Yeah. Talking to the people who've reported them. Yeah. Maybe getting their view of the world. But actually just keep reinforcing, actually, as a leader of this business, this thing is important to me.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, fully agree. I mean, showing that if we can show positive success when we report on hazards, maybe it's a correlation of incidents going down, maybe it's a correlation of getting more controls in place or getting better things in place, whatever it is, like I use mats. I mean, that's a simple thing, but mats where you have a ice machine or some better PPE. These glasses fog up. We've been whatever. You start showing that, even if it's maybe a slight comfort issue, you show that leadership shows that they care about what's being reported when we see hazards. That's a successful move and step forward.
Hazards are inherent. If we can get a really good hazard spotting program in place that keeps production up and running, stops people from getting hurt, it has a direct knock-on effect on the bottom line for any organization. So it's a really great thing to be doing. And I think the sort of final point on it I was going to pick up on was the danger with all of these things is that we either have a big launch as we start this thing. So great, woo, we're going to do hazard spotting. Okay. So we go out and we have this big launch, this big kickoff, and then it's just something that we do. Yeah. Or it's something that we just train people on when we induct them into the business.
Hey everyone, really appreciate you tuning into this episode of Two Bald Guys Talking Safety. Please follow and subscribe to wherever you stream your favorite podcast, or visit us at evotix.com.
And if you want to see how follically challenged we really are, come and check us out on YouTube. If you've got value from the podcast, please go to Apple Podcasts, and in the review section of this podcast, if you could leave us a review or a rating, that would be great.
And as always, everyone, while you're going about your days, about your normal lives, stay safe out there and watch each other's back.